The gold standard is a monetary system where a country's currency or paper money has a value directly linked to gold. With the gold standard, countries agree to convert paper money into a fixed amount of gold. A country that uses the gold standard sets a fixed price for gold and buys and sells gold at that price. The economic consequences of war and peace, 1919 to 1938, Chapter 6. Markets and money, the international economy before World War I. Germany and Britain were the motors for a worldwide economic system. They had low tariffs, stable currency exchange rate. They encouraged trade and economic growth. Germany acted as an economic engine of growth in Europe. World War I broke the circle. Disruption and change in the 1920s. Economics. Countries went off the gold standard. Trade declined sharply. Britain no longer had the resources to manage world finances. The U.S. had not yet replaced Britain in the world economy. Industrialization spread to many areas of the food where they sought raw materials and processed food. There is changing technology, such as oil for coal and new products. The new industries included electric power, automobiles, gasoline, tourist travel, and highways and housing construction. After World War I, the economy was unstable, and inflation and deflation was widespread. Deflation and inflation. Deflation is a decrease in the general price level of goods and services. Inflation indicates a decrease in the purchasing power of a nation's currency. After World War I, there was a short post-wartime economic boom. Germany, Austria, Hungary, Poland, and Russia saw runaway inflation. Inflation destroyed the value of currency. 1925 to 1930, Britain, France, Japan returned to the gold standard. In the 1920s, France and the U.S. managed to achieve economic stability. Capital. In finance and accounting, capital generally refers to financial wealth, especially that used to start or maintain a business. In classical economics, capital is one of the four factors of production. The others are land, labor, and organization. International capital in motion. The health of the international economy depends on the movement of capital along the industrialized nation. Politics, economics shape post-war economic policy. America and Great Britain demand repayment of war debts. The Treaty of Versailles required Germany to pay a large sum in reparations. Germany was to disarm, and Germany had to give up territory. All these factors would lead them into World War II. The Dawes Act of 1924. It was formulated to take the Weimar Germany out of the hyperinflation and return Weimar's economy to the same form of stability. Hyperinflation. Monetary inflation occurred at a very high rate, which was going on in Germany. You've heard the expression, a bag of gold will buy a loaf of bread. American bankers set up a circular system in which they loaned money to Germany. Germany paid reparations to Western Europe, and they paid the war debts to the United States. The circle capital only when the U.S., Great Britain, and France kept lending money. Germany took on large debts which could be called in quickly, and they were. Depression across the globe. Weakness in the international economic system. The world economy disintegrated between 1929 and 1932. Millions of people were thrown out of work. The U.S., the largest economy and major economy, is resting on shaky ground. There was a domino effect throughout the world. The Depression started in the U.S. The major industries, oil, agriculture, textiles, were in trouble. Stock buying was based on rumor. People seldom paid in full, buying on margin, which they had to only put up 10% of what it was worth. In October 29, 1929, the U.S. stock market crashes. The U.S. economy reduced demand for imports, and they refused to lend more money. Raising tariffs in 1930 causes a contraction of world trade. 1930 to 31, Europe and Latin America banks begin to fail. There's a financial crisis in Central and Eastern Europe, which spreads to Britain. Britain abandons the gold standard. International economy goes into a downward spiral. In the 1930s, prices for agricultural goods and for products used in industry fall. Agricultural production increases to compensate. Between 1929 and 1932, the value of world trade decreases by 2/3. Depression in the Third World. Imperial powers pursue policies that favor white elites in home countries. The world is divided into competing blocs. Unemployment, 1932 to 1933. Germany has the highest rate of unemployment, 44%. Norwegians second with 31%. Austrians, 29%. In the U.S., 27%. In Great Britain, 22%. Unemployment. Women fared better than men. Women seldom worked outside the home, and it was an integral part of their job, which was raising the children and keeping the home. Men lost their self-respect. Politics became more polarized, sort of like now. Inequality between the rich and the poor. There are different national solutions to the crisis. The Soviet Union was a planned communist state. The state owned virtually all resources and controlled investments. Bureaucrats set prices and production figures. Japan was a developmental state. Businesses set the rule, but also targeted certain sectors of the economy for state investment. Regulatory state. The U.S. in 1932, FDR was elected, and he invented the New Deal, which raised confidence in banks, raised farm income, put people back to work. Political opponents disputed some parts of the New Deal. Initiatives did less than anticipated. In Latin America, fewer resources than U.S. They had fewer resources than the U.S. Import substitutions were used for what they could not get. Financing new industries became more important. Manufacturers replaced imports under the protection of high tariffs. They went off the gold standard, and they defaulted on many of their foreign debts. The planned communist state. The Soviet Union, by the end of its civil war, allowed growth in the private sector. Stalin implemented a 5-year plan. Millions joined the workforce. Metals and machinery rose by a factor of 14%. They achieved a position relative to Germany and the United States. There was private ownership of farms, and they shifted to collective farming at a horrible human cost. Joseph Stalin forced industrialization, growth of an authoritarian rule. Stalin pursued enemies ruthlessly. Millions of ordinary people suffered at the hands of the state. Developmental state. The Japanese state played a central role in the state industrialization. The state worked in partnership with giant family-led companies. In the 1930s, exports declined. Unemployment rose sharply. Japan returned to the gold standard. The government fell. There was a rise in fascism. Campaign of rearmament created many jobs. Japan exploited Korea and Manchuria for raw materials and cheap labor. They produced substitute for foreign imports. Domestic life in hard times, industrialization, birth control, modern machine and sanitation changed, increasing the birth rate and lowering the death rate. This woman, Margaret Sanger, was a big proponent of birth control. This was really not felt very well with the powers that be. They didn't think that she would be advertising certain things, but this helped millions of women who were in lower classes and in poverty not have so many children year after year. Women in power. Women were frequently perceived as inferior and had few rights or opportunities. The family remained an indispensable structure of support. In Europe, laws were being changed for women to have the right to own and inherit property. Most of the world's population lived in villages. Villages fell under pressure to change. New ideas from city workers or missionaries came into focus. Isolation of rural areas around the world decreased. Migration and urbanization. The 1920s and 1930s saw decades of mass migration. After World War I, several million people fled to Central Europe to escape revolution and disorder in the Soviet Union. Armenians and Greeks were expelled from Turkey. Chinese people fled to escape political turmoil and warfare. Long-distance migrants moved to cities.